Welcome to Network Safety 101. In this video, we're going to cover the basics of how to stay safe on the internet today. My name is Dan Kmeyer with West Valley Technical Services. Let's begin. Let's begin by talking about just why it's important to cover this material in the first place. First of all, we want to protect whatever sensitive information we're responsible for while still providing access to our team members so that they can do their jobs. That might be health information, financial data, maybe personal information, things you don't want the outside public to get a hold of. We also want to improve the availability of your resources. By that I mean we want to prevent crashes on your server or workstations and prevent all that time lost to having to recover, maybe from a ransomware attack or a virus infection. And we also want to prevent any legal liability, for instance, if you are a HIPAA compliant organization. To better understand the concept of network security, I like to use the analogy of physical security, which most of us are already familiar with. There are two categories of events. We want to prevent or mitigate risk, and then we also want to perform remediation in the case that a breach occurs. So in the physical realm, we would lock our doors. Maybe we'd have an alarm system or have security cameras. And then if we did get broken into anyway, we would call and file a police report, and we would address whatever exploit the violators used to get access. It's no different in the computer security realm. We're going to utilize equipment like firewalls, software like antivirus, use access control, encryption, and training like this to try to prevent any occurrences. And then if something does happen, we're going to report and document it, and once again, address whatever was exploited. Next, I want to briefly introduce the 5 different areas of attack. We call these threat surfaces. The first would be a physical attack. An example would be someone breaking into the building and maybe stealing a computer with some data on it. The second would be a network attack. An example being someone hacking the server from outside the network. A web attack. That would be something like phishing scams, software attacks, an instance like malware or virus, and social engineering. That would be somebody posing as someone who works here for the purpose of getting somebody's password and then logging into the server and getting whatever they want. Next, let's take a look at each of the threat surfaces in a little bit more detail. With physical attacks, we're going to use something like physical locks to try to protect us from people breaking in. All of our building entrances, we want to make sure that we have physical locks. And then on top of that, wherever our server is located, we want to have a separate lock on that room as well. The idea is to try to make it so difficult to get into the server if someone broke in that maybe it takes so long that they would leave without actually taking the server once they realize how difficult it'll be. We also want to utilize Kensington locks on devices like laptops or network devices. That's that little oval-shaped hole that you can see on certain devices like laptops. There's a special type of lock and cable that allows you to attach it to your desk, so it makes it very difficult for someone to steal it. Make sure we have passwords on all of our mobile devices like cell phones and laptops and whatnot. That way, if someone does steal it, they're not going to be able to just open it right up and get access to whatever information is on the phone. Make sure we're using PIN codes on a cell phone device, for instance, and password protection on our laptops. And we also want to utilize something called encryption. So on our hard drives on a laptop, if I were to steal a typical laptop, I have the ability as an IT person to remove the physical hard drive, which has all of your files on it, and connect it to another computer. And if it's not encrypted, I can read all the files that are on that hard drive. Encryption prevents somebody from being able to do that. In the case of a network attack, we will typically utilize equipment like firewalls or content filters to protect the network from external threats. Also, we want to make sure we're always using strong passwords, non-dictionary words, strong meaning that it's got symbols, spaces maybe, numbers and whatnot. If you're ever wondering how long it would take somebody to hack your specific password, you can use the website linked there, howsecureismypassword.net. Type in the password you're thinking of using, And it'll tell you, utilizing the same algorithms that hackers would, to tell you how long it would take for someone to break into your computer. Ideally, you want to make sure that your password says at least 1 year, because typically we're going to change passwords about once a year. The next threat surface I want to talk about are web attacks, the most common being phishing scams and whatnot. Let me give you an example to explain what these look like. Maybe you type in MI Bank into a web browser instead of mybank.com to try to get into your banking website. Well, someone else, a hacker in this case, they've purchased that domain name, the one that's spelled wrong, and they've created another website that looks exactly like your real bank's website. So when you try to log in, that person actually stores your username and password, and then behind the scenes, use it to log into your real bank website and then clean out the funds. That's an example of a phishing scam. Now, this is most commonly done via email. So let's take a look at what maybe a scam email would look like. Now, this is a real scam email, and there are a few things to note here. First, you want to see that the Amazon email up in the top doesn't actually match. It doesn't actually have Amazon.com in there. It's something totally different. Also, you'll notice that the greeting, it says, rather than your name, in my case, instead of it saying Dear Dan, it'll just say Dear User or Dear Client or Dear Customer. And that's because this is a general email that's just sent to a ton of people. They don't actually know your name. So that's another way to check. You also want to hover over any links, because if I were to create a link in an email, I can make it say whatever I want, but if I hover my mouse over it, it will reveal where that link will actually take me. And oftentimes what will happen is they'll make the link say Amazon.com, but if you hover your mouse over it, you'll be able to see that in reality it's taking you somewhere else. So those are the things to look for to prevent yourself from getting scammed. Now let's discuss software attacks. These are things that most people are familiar with, like viruses, spyware, even ransomware, which has become more common lately, scareware. There's all these different kinds. They all kind of play out similarly, though. They're trying to install software onto your computer that you wouldn't really want on there for the purpose of tracking where you go, so they can turn around and sell that information, or maybe ransom you back your computer by locking it down and encrypting all of your files without paying them. You have no way of getting those files back unless you were taking good backups. So let's take a quick look of how this stuff typically gets on your computer. The most common method is when you download something for free, some kind of quote-unquote free piece of software, in this case Cam Studio. What they'll do is they'll bundle in spyware or malware without you knowing it. Now, they're counting on you not paying attention. Okay, you'll notice here in the installer for Cam Studio, there's this My Search Dial thing, and it's hard to not install it. Like if you're just clicking next through everything, you're gonna install this software. So you gotta be real careful to use caution whenever you're getting something for quote unquote free. That's typically how they pay for it. So if you ever see a security alert, that little pop-up that says, hey, you're about to do something to change your computer, let that be an extra layer of caution for you. Know that it's very possible that it's trying to install something that you may not like. Okay. And if you just don't know for sure, you can always scan the installer via your antivirus and whatnot. Just kind of make sure. Just don't click emails in links unless you asked for it too. Because a lot of times, if I'm not requesting somebody send me something and I just get an email that says, hey, you should check this out, and it's got a link in it, chances are it was probably spam. It's probably not actually a legit link, and you want to stay away from it. So in those cases, just reply back to the person and say, hey, did you really send this to me? And chances are they're like, no, I didn't send it to you. And it's because their email account has been hacked. And so spammers have been utilizing it to send spam to all the people in their contact list. And you don't want to fall for it. The last threat surface we're going to talk about is actually one of the more commonly utilized one by hackers. And it's called social engineering. Let me first give an example of what one might look like. Let's say you get a phone call, you answer it, and they say, hey, this is Jim. I'm the new guy. I work with Dan, in my case, over at West Valley Tech. Okay. I need to get access to your server to do some updates, but Dan hasn't given me the password to it. Do you have it real quick? Sure. And then you hand over that password. Now who knows if my name's really Jim or whatnot, I now have the information that I need to be able to access your server with nobody looking and grabbing that information. It's a very low-tech method of compromising someone's network. Another way they'll do it is if you ever use a sticky note to put your password on. If, like, I'm a patient at a medical facility and I'm paying attention as they walk me down the hall, I'm looking at the desks as I pass and I see a sticky note and it's got a password. Now I've got your password. I memorize it on my way. So those are just a couple of examples of social engineering. Make sure you don't write down passwords where people could see it. And in a case like this phone conversation, what we would do is we'd set up like a safe word where if someone requests something sensitive over the phone claiming to be part of our company, there is a passphrase or a word that you need to query. You say, okay, well, what's the passcode? If they don't know it, then you don't give them the information. They would know it if they really were an employee of our company. So those are the main threat surfaces that we see. And we've given you some recommendations on how you can prevent yourself from being taken advantage of. But let's do a real quick review. First, we had physical attacks, people breaking into the building. We had network attacks, which we just utilize a firewall. Most of you will never have to really worry about this as long as we have a firewall on the network. We're going to have web attacks. That would be your phishing scams, trying to get you to go to a specific website and provide your user credentials. There are software attacks, which are our ransomware and virus attacks. We talked about how to prevent that whenever we're installing free stuff and not clicking on links in emails. And social engineering, making sure we're not writing down any passwords and we don't give out any sensitive information over the phone. That concludes Network Safety 101. My name's Dan Kmeyer with West Valley Technical Services. And if you have any further questions, or if there's anything you think we can help you with in regards to your network safety, feel free to reach out to us at helpdesk@wvtechservices.com. We hope that this has been informative and beneficial for you.